So in permaculture, I've learned two things, among other things, two main concepts to take with you when you're trying to build a food forest. This is a couple years in. Pretty much every place I move, my whole family does this. We always try to improve the land, um, adding fruit trees. Farming's in our blood for some reason. I don't know why, but it's something I enjoy. One is you need to get ruminid, um, like fertilizer or chickens or goats. You need to bring in mulch of some kind. So here we have horse manure. This is alfalfa mixed with goat manure here at the base of this curly leaf infested peach tree. What it does is it adds to the topsoil. So this whole land is all sand. Like here's a good piece of, like a good example, just sand. Sometimes it's difficult to grow in sand. I mean, it's like the Greening the Desert project. Literally, sand everywhere. Just a few, not even a few inches. It's like sand right at the surface. And by adding this mulch and compost and manure to the topsoil, you're building this topsoil thousands of years faster than you would by just trying to grow plants and let them grow and die through succession. Like I pulled that grass, I'm leaving it, kind of a chop and drop method. So I finally chopped that mallow plant that was right here, chop and drop. So that's going to go back into the soil. I'm probably going to cover it with more manure and compost and mulch and build a bioswale berm right there using those mallow plants. Same thing here. This is nightshade and some clumps of grass and stuff and other clumps of grass. I'm just kind of pulling them out in big clumps and then piling them here. And it's going to be a bioswale berm. Nightshade. I like nightshade. Pretty much every member of its family, whether it's potatoes or tomatoes or edible berries. I like it because moles don't like to eat nightshade. It makes them sick. And so if you have nightshade grow next to your tree, it protects the roots of your tree. So number one, you got to get compost down, mulch, and you got to keep after it because this stuff breaks down and blows away in the wind. It's pretty much something that's going to take a couple decades to really build a thick layer. Maybe less. It depends on how much compost you add. You can already kind of see the contour of this tier. It's kind of turned to a belly shape. Like a low, it goes down and up. So I did excavate a little bit of soil and then move it out to the outside edge of the berm. But I've also been adding constantly to the downhill side of the trees and kind of pushing this swale out towards the downhill side. Also because that's the way the sun is shining down. So it's casting its light down at this side. So this is the side where I want to preserve more water because this side over here is all covered in shade. So I don't need quite as much compost. So mulch and compost, manure on the sunny side, just because I have a limited amount, as much as the animals produce. But over here on the shade side, this is the part B of the permaculture forest, how to build it up. Get plants in the ground. Preferably plants that keep coming back, so we got things that reseed themselves, like mallow. Artichokes, so here, got a bunch of artichokes. There's an artichoke right by my feet, and I'm putting them in baskets to let them get a foothold. Here's an artichoke that was struggling, so I planted the artichoke seed, sprouted it, and then planted the sprout next to it. because the basket is valuable. There's one here that just didn't make it. The roots are going to probably survive, but there's nothing growing in there. So I can plant a small tree, an elderberry plant, another artichoke, whatever. But you want to get your artichokes and your giant purple mustard leaves grown, mixed in with amaranth. You want to get your beans. Those are really good to grow. Any kind of legume is good to grow because it's going to infuse the soil with nitrogen. And these fava beans are great for it. In my region, there's entire fields of fava beans and sweet peas. They just grow them and then till them in. The only reason they're there is just to fertilize the soil. So there are local people that are into sustainable agriculture here. But yeah, this is all just grass. It was all graded to the same slope that went down to the willow tree. It was just all the same grade, nice and smooth, no topsoil. Which is kind of interesting when you consider the person who's carrying the entity, I guess the archetype, whoever's caring for a piece of land. It can be the difference between a pit mine and a beautiful edible forest of food, right? From ground level, like that. Herbs, trees, on up, right? It just depends on what you want to do with your land. This used to be an oak tree that was like, I don't know, 40, 50 feet tall. And 4 or 5 years ago, shortly before we moved here, it died. So we don't have this big shady oak tree here, which is why we're growing all these other things. But that big tree didn't leave very much topsoil. It was just a little bit of you can see a little bit of biomass in the dirt just to turn the sand from, orange or yellow to kind of a brownish tint. But when you get lots of plants sending their roots down into the ground and you add topsoil, biomass, lots of carbon to the topsoil, you begin to end up with a living soil that actually, the ground the earth becomes alive again. So that's kind of what you're going for. So 2 things. Biomass, whether it's compost or wood chips or manure. I'm going to add that to the equation and then add plants in there. Stick plants in the ground and then the roots will begin to break down in the soil and you'll get that topsoil deeper. Anyway, what are your thoughts? I thought I'd share that idea with you. It's working really good here for being on an old ancient sand dune. We're actually getting things to grow and come back to life, bringing abundance to the land, which is another video. The commandment to multiply and replenish the earth is not limited to sex and reproduction. It also has to do with multiplying and replenishing not yourself but the earth, making the earth better. So anyway, this is Chris. I'll check in with y'all in a future video. Thank you.